Betrayal doesn't break down the door, it tiptoes in. It begins with silence over dinner, a distant look, the words, "I need some space." Then comes fear, then a decision. And just when the pain feels endless, something begins to stir deep inside. Life, choice, strength. This journey isn't about destruction. It's the path of someone who found themselves in the ashes and chose not to wait for the wind to scatter them, but to become the fire instead. Greetings, my dear friend. I am very happy that you are watching my video, and I will be even happier if you subscribe to my channel. This will make me even happier. Let's get started. The love he dreamed of, the one he built for years, turned out to be living a double life. Hidden messages, lies, betrayal. He thought he knew her. He was wrong. First came the pain, then the anger, and slowly, step by step, he begins to rebuild himself, alone, battling the past. In the photographs where he starts to find himself again. You've already looked inside. Now there's only one thing left, to see it through to the end. Greetings, my dear friend. I am very happy that you are watching my video, and I will be even happier if you subscribe to my channel. This will make me even happier. Let's get started. I'm Benjamin, 34, a teacher at the local middle school. My wife, Catherine, 30, is a nurse at the downtown hospital. I want to share how we met, a memory that's still so vivid in my mind. It feels like it happened just yesterday. It all started on a typical trip to the grocery store. I found myself standing in front of the apples, unsure of which ones to pick. I must have looked a bit out of place because a stunning woman with long brown hair approached and said, "The red ones are the sweetest." I smiled and said, "Thanks, I'm terrible at picking fruit." She laughed, introduced herself as Catherine, and offered to help me with my shopping. We strolled through the aisles, chatting and laughing along the way. By the time we reached the checkout, I knew I wanted to see her again. Nervously, I asked, "Would you like to grab a coffee sometime?" Her eyes lit up and she replied, "I'd love to." That was 4 years ago. We spent 2 incredible years together. Those were the best moments of my life. Picnics in the park, cozy movie nights, staying up late sharing our dreams. Catherine was intelligent, funny, and kind-hearted. I felt incredibly fortunate. On our 2nd anniversary, I took her to her favorite restaurant. I wore a dark blue shirt with a bright tie to complement her beautiful blue dress. When dessert arrived, I dropped to one knee, my heart pounding in my chest, and pulled out a small box. "Catherine," I said, "will you marry me?" Tears welled up in her eyes as she nodded. "Yes, Benjamin, yes." The entire restaurant erupted in applause as I slipped the ring onto her finger. It was the happiest moment of my life. 6 months later, we married in a quiet ceremony surrounded by our closest family and friends. Catherine was radiant in her white gown, and I couldn't stop smiling as we exchanged our vows. The next 2 years were blissful. We bought a small house with a backyard garden where we spent weekends planting flowers and vegetables. In the evenings, we'd sit on the porch swing, talking about our day as the sun set. "I love our life together," Catherine would say, resting her head on my shoulder. "I do too," I'd reply, kissing her gently. Everything seemed perfect. We had stable jobs, a cozy home, and most importantly, each other. I imagined growing old together, maybe even starting a family one day. But 2 months ago, everything changed. It was a typical Tuesday evening. We had just finished dinner, and I was washing the dishes while Catherine dried them. "Benjamin," she said, her tone suddenly serious, "we need to talk." I turned off the faucet and looked at her. "Sure. What's on your mind?" Catherine took a deep breath. "I've been thinking. Maybe we should consider opening up our marriage. It hit me like a punch to the stomach." "What do you mean?" I asked, even though I knew exactly what she was suggesting. "You know," she continued, "seeing other people just to spice things up. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Our perfect life felt like it was slipping away. My mouth went dry and my heart started racing. Open our marriage? I repeated, my voice shaky. You mean seeing other people? She nodded, nervously biting her lip. Yeah, I thought it might be fun to try something different. No, I said, shaking my head firmly. I can't share you with anyone else. Catherine's face dropped. She looked down at the floor and mumbled, "Oh, okay." We finished the dishes in silence, and later that night, as we got ready for bed, everything felt wrong. Catherine barely said a word, and when I tried to hug her, she barely responded. Lying in bed, wide awake, my mind was spinning. Why did Catherine want to open our marriage? Was I not enough for her anymore? The next morning, as she got ready for her shift at the hospital, I felt a heavy weight in my chest. Being a nurse, her hours were unpredictable, which made it difficult to have important conversations. "Have a good day at work," I said as she left. "Thanks," she replied, avoiding my gaze. Once she was gone, I sat at the kitchen table, feeling awful. Had I been too quick to shut her down? Did she think I didn't care about her needs? The following week, the tension between us was unbearable. Catherine worked long night shifts, and we barely saw each other. When we did, there was an invisible wall between us. One night, as I was grading papers in the living room, I heard the door open. Catherine walked in, completely exhausted, and collapsed on the couch beside me. "How was your shift?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Long," she sighed. It was a hectic night in the ER. I put my pen down and turned toward her. I softly called out to her. "Catherine," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "can we revisit what you brought up last week? About the idea of opening up our marriage?" She froze, her eyes widening in surprise. "Oh," she responded hesitantly. "I suppose so." Taking a deep breath, I tried to steady myself. "I'm sorry for how I reacted earlier. I wasn't expecting it. Can you help me understand what's led you to consider this?" Catherine gave a slight shrug, her face thoughtful as she looked away. "I'm not entirely sure," she confessed, her gaze dropping to the floor. "I thought maybe it would be exciting to try something new." Her words hit me harder than I anticipated, a tight knot forming in my stomach. With a barely audible voice, I asked, "Am I not enough for you anymore?" Her eyes widened in panic. "No, Benjamin, that's not it at all," she quickly assured me. "I love you. Maybe I'm just overthinking it." She trailed off, her gaze wandering downward. "I'm probably just being ridiculous." I reached out, gently taking her hand in mine. "I love you too," I murmured, my voice quivering. "But I'm scared. What if one of us develops feelings for someone else?" She squeezed my hand reassuringly. "That won't happen," she said, her voice attempting to soothe my fears. "It's only about having fun. Nothing deeper." I wasn't sure how to respond. Part of me wanted to support her, but I was terrified of losing what we shared. "Can I have some more time to think it through?" I asked, my voice low and uncertain. Catherine nodded, her tone gentle. "Of course," she said. "Take all the time you need. There's no rush." Later, as we got ready for bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed between us. I loved Catherine more than anything, but for the first time in our marriage, I felt a deep sense of uncertainty about where we were headed. A few days later, in an attempt to turn things around, I came home early from work, eager to surprise her. I headed straight to the kitchen, determined to make her favorite meal, spaghetti and meatballs with garlic bread. I tied on my blue apron and set to work. Soon, the aroma of garlic and simmering tomato sauce filled the air. I carefully set the table with our nicer dishes and lit a few candles to create a cozy atmosphere. When Catherine walked in, her eyes widened in surprise. "Benjamin, what's all this?" she asked. I smiled and kissed her gently on the cheek. "I thought we could have a nice dinner together," I said, keeping my tone light. Her expression softened, and she smiled. "It smells incredible," she said. We sat down to eat, and for a while, it felt like things were returning to normal. We talked about our day, joked around, and I felt a small sense of relief seeing her smile. After dinner, we moved to the living room, each of us holding a glass of grape juice, our only option in the fridge. Despite the warmth in the air, I knew I had to bring up the subject of the open marriage again, though it made me uneasy. "Catherine," I began, my voice steady but cautious, "can we talk about what you mentioned the other day? About opening things up between us?" Her smile faltered immediately. She set her glass down, her face tense. "What about it?" she asked, her tone cold. I tried to stay calm, despite the knot tightening in my chest. "I've been thinking a lot about it. Can you help me understand why this is something you want?" Her face flushed with color. "Why are you bringing this up now?" she snapped, her frustration rising. "I thought we were having a nice evening." Her anger took me by surprise. "I'm not trying to ruin anything," I quickly replied, trying to clarify. "I just need to understand." Catherine stood up abruptly, her hands on her hips, her eyes flashing. "Understand what?" she demanded. "Are you trying to trap me?" I was utterly confused. "Trap you?" I repeated, stunned. "Catherine, I'm not playing games. I just want to talk." Her voice was sharp as she retorted, "Well, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like you're trying to get me to say something wrong." Frustration bubbled up inside me. "That's not fair," I snapped, my voice tight with emotion. "I'm trying my best." Without another word, Catherine grabbed her glass and stormed off to the kitchen, her footsteps loud in the silence. I could hear the glass clinking as she poured the juice down the sink. "I'm going to bed," she called out from the other room. I sat there, a sense of despair settling over me. How had our dinner, meant to bring us closer, turned into this? I couldn't understand why Catherine was so upset. All I wanted was to talk things through. When I finally joined her in bed, Catherine was curled up with her back to me, pretending to sleep, though I wasn't sure. In the darkness, my mind raced with questions. Why was she acting like this? Was she hiding something from me? I desperately wanted to believe everything was fine, but a nagging voice in my mind told me otherwise. I tossed and turned all night, unable to quiet the doubts eating at me. Our marriage was clearly in trouble, and I had no idea how to fix it. The next morning, I woke up early, hoping for some clarity. Catherine was still asleep, so I quietly went to the kitchen to make coffee. I sat at the table, sipping from my favorite mug, when Catherine walked in. She looked drained, dark circles under her eyes from a restless night. "Morning," I said softly. "Would you like some coffee?" Catherine nodded and sat down across from me. She didn't speak at first, her tired eyes avoiding mine as the weight of everything between us hung in the air. We sat there in complete silence, the air heavy with everything left unsaid. Time seemed to stretch on endlessly until I couldn't hold back any longer. "Catherine," I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper, "can we talk about what's really going on here?" She exhaled deeply, placing her mug down gently with a faint clink. "Fine," she muttered, her tone reluctant yet resigned. "What do you need to know?" she asked, her voice tinged with hesitation. I inhaled deeply, trying to steady my nerves. "Why did you really suggest opening up our marriage? Please, just be honest with me." Catherine lowered her gaze to her hands, her fingers nervously twisting together. "It's stupid," she murmured. "I won't think it's stupid," I replied firmly, though my voice remained gentle. "Just tell me the truth." She hesitated for a long moment, then finally lifted her eyes to meet mine, her gaze shimmering with unshed tears. "At work, the younger nurses are always sharing their crazy weekend stories, their dating adventures. And sometimes I feel like I'm missing out." Her words hit me with the force of a physical blow. "Missing out?" I echoed, struggling to make sense of what she was saying. "On what, exactly?" She shrugged, her voice barely above a whisper. Excitement? Adventure? We got married so young, Benjamin. Sometimes I wonder if we're just dull. I sat in stunned silence, unable to comprehend what she had just revealed. Dull? I asked in disbelief. Was this truly how she felt? I love our life together, Catherine. I thought you did too, she replied quickly, almost defensively. I do. Most of the time, she added, her voice faltering. But don't you ever wonder what else is out there? I shook my head without a moment's hesitation. No, I don't. You're everything I want, Catherine. I thought I was everything you wanted too. Catherine reached across the table, her hand brushing mine as she spoke, her voice softer now. You are. I'm sorry for bringing this up. Can we just forget it? She asked, her tone almost pleading. I wanted to believe her, but something inside me was telling me something wasn't right. Are you sure? Because if there's something wrong, we need to fix it together. She wouldn't look me in the eyes as she spoke. Nothing's wrong. I was just being silly. The following days, I tried my best to act as though nothing had changed, but it was impossible to ignore the distance between us. Catherine was always absorbed in her phone or staying late at work. Even when we were physically together, it felt like she was a world away. One evening, as we sat together in front of the TV, I glanced at her. She was entirely focused on her phone, hardly noticing the show we were supposedly watching. Do you remember when we used to talk for hours? I asked, breaking the silence. Catherine looked up, startled as if she hadn't heard me. Oh yeah, she said vaguely. That was nice. We could do that again, I suggested, hoping to rekindle something. Talk, I mean. She gave me a tired, faint smile. Maybe later. Okay, I said quietly, my heart sinking. I'm kind of tired. As she returned to her phone, I felt an overwhelming weight settle on me. Where was the woman who used to laugh at my jokes? Who would dance with me in the kitchen while we cooked? The one who made me feel like the most important person in her life? I missed that Catherine. I missed us. And part of me began to fear that Catherine was searching for something I couldn't provide. That night, lying next to her in bed while she slept, I couldn't shake the feeling that our marriage, once filled with joy, was slipping away, and I had no idea how to stop it. As the days bled into weeks, nothing improved. In fact, it only seemed to get worse. Catherine started coming home later and later from work. At first, it was just a few extra hours, but soon she was walking through the door after I'd already gone to bed. One night, I decided to stay up and wait for her. When she finally arrived around 11:30, I was sitting on the couch in my pajamas. Benjamin, she said, clearly surprised. Why are you still up? I tried to keep my voice steady, but there was a hint of frustration. I've been worried. You've been getting home so late lately. Catherine dropped her bag onto the floor and sighed heavily. I know. I'm sorry. Work's been crazy. Is everything okay at the hospital? I asked, hoping for some reassurance. She nodded, but her eyes avoided mine. Yeah, there might be a promotion soon, and I'm trying to prove I can take on more responsibility. I wanted to believe her, but something felt off. A promotion? That's great, but why didn't you tell me about it sooner? I didn't want to jinx it, she explained quickly. Can we talk about this tomorrow? I'm really tired. Without waiting for my response, she turned and headed for the bedroom, leaving me sitting there on the couch, filled with confusion and doubt. The next day, I tried to push my suspicions aside. Maybe Catherine really was just focused on the promotion. But as time went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something else was going on. Catherine was always on her phone, grinning at text messages. When I asked who she was talking to, she would casually say, "People from work," and quickly change the subject. She started going out more on weekends, claiming she was meeting co-workers for drinks. One Saturday morning, as Catherine got ready to leave, I knew it was time to address the growing concerns. "You've been out a lot lately," I said, my voice carefully neutral. "Everything all right?" Catherine glanced up at me from the mirror while putting on her earrings. "Of course," she replied breezily, her tone upbeat. "Why wouldn't it be?" she added with a light laugh, but I caught the subtle shift in her voice. "I don't know," I muttered, feeling a lump in my throat. "I guess I just feel a little left out." Catherine turned to face me, her expression softening. "Oh, Benjamin," she said, pulling me into a quick embrace. "It's just work, nothing more." But as she pulled away, I noticed something, a flicker of unease. She wouldn't look me in the eye. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. That night, as I lay in bed alone, waiting for Catherine's return, my mind raced. Was it really just work? Or was there someone else? I didn't want to believe that Catherine could be hiding something from me. She was my wife, my partner. We had vowed to always trust and love each other. But as the minutes dragged on, the silence became suffocating, and doubts crept in. I tried to push the thoughts away. "Don't jump to conclusions," I told myself. "Catherine loves you. There must be a reasonable explanation for all of this," I insisted. But deep inside, a nagging voice whispered that something wasn't right. One Tuesday, I decided to do something nice for Catherine. I arrived home early from work and began preparing our favorite meal, lasagna with extra cheese. The comforting aroma of tomatoes and garlic quickly filled the kitchen, reminding me of simpler, happier times. Just as I was sliding the lasagna into the oven, my phone buzzed with a message from Catherine. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up." "Sorry." My stomach dropped. I stared at the lasagna, suddenly feeling foolish for even bothering. Then a thought struck me. What if I surprised Catherine at work? I could bring her the lasagna, and we could eat together in her office, like we used to. It could be a small gesture, a way to reconnect. After the lasagna finished baking, I portioned out a generous serving, packed it into a container along with some garlic bread and a can of Catherine's favorite soda. The drive to the hospital was just about 20 minutes, but the whole time I imagined how delighted Catherine would be to see me. Maybe this would bring us back to where we used to be. When I arrived at the hospital, I approached the front desk, where a young woman with curly hair was working. "Hi," I said, holding up the container. "I'm here to see Catherine. I'm her husband, Benjamin. I brought her some dinner." She glanced at her computer, then looked back at me, her face showing confusion. "I'm sorry," she said, "but Catherine left about an hour ago." My heart stopped. "She left? But she told me she was working late," I stammered. The woman shrugged. "She said she was done for the day," she said. My mind began to spin. Where had Catherine gone if not to work? Why had she lied? "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Maybe she came back?" The woman shook her head. "No, I've been here the whole time. She definitely left." I muttered a quick thank you and turned to leave, still holding the cold lasagna. My hands trembled as I walked back to my car, almost dropping the container. Sitting behind the wheel, I felt lost. Should I call Catherine? Should I start driving around looking for her? Or should I go home and wait? I sat there for what felt like an eternity, staring at my phone, torn between fear and uncertainty. Finally, I sent her a text. "Hope work isn't too stressful. Love you." A few moments later, her reply came, "Thanks. It's pretty busy here. See you later." I stared at the message, dread crawling through my gut. Catherine was lying to me. She wasn't at work. She was somewhere else, doing something she didn't want me to know about. As I drove home, the lasagna sitting cold in the passenger seat, I felt like everything was unraveling. What was going on? Where was Catherine? Why didn't she want me to know where she was? I had 1,000 questions, but I was terrified of the answers. Sleep eluded me that night. When Catherine finally came home, I pretended to be asleep, not knowing how to confront her. The next morning, I woke up early and made coffee, hoping to feel like things were normal again. Catherine wandered into the kitchen, yawning. "Morning," I said, trying to sound casual, though my voice betrayed me. "Morning," she replied, pouring herself a cup of coffee. She looked worn out, as if she hadn't slept well. "How was work last night?" I asked, my voice tight, uncertain if I really wanted to hear her answer. I kept my tone light as I asked, "So, how's everything going?" She glanced up for a moment before quickly returning to the swirling motion of her coffee. "Same old, really. Busy," she answered, her voice flat and emotionless. I wanted to ask more, to dig deeper about the late hours and the strange behavior, but the words seemed to stick in my throat. Instead, I shifted gears. "I made lasagna yesterday, but I never got the chance to share it with you. Want some for dinner tonight?" Her eyes flickered with interest for just a brief second before she quickly masked it with an unreadable expression. "Sure," she replied quietly. "That sounds nice," I said, and the words hung in the air, stretching as we sat there sipping our coffee in silence. The closeness we once shared felt like a memory from another time, and the discomfort between us grew. Something wasn't right, and it was impossible to ignore. I knew we needed to talk, but I didn't know how to bring it up without making things worse. I took a deep breath. "Catherine, we need to talk," I said, my tone steady but unwavering. She froze, her hand hovering over the coffee pot. "About what?" she asked, her voice betraying a trace of nervousness. "About last night," I replied, keeping my composure. "I went to the hospital to surprise you with dinner." Her face drained of color. "You did?" she whispered, barely audible. I nodded. "The receptionist said you'd left an hour ago. You told me you were working late." Catherine shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. "Right. I had a meeting off-site," she said quickly. "A meeting?" I pressed, my stomach tight with unease. "Why didn't you mention it before?" "It's nothing, really," Catherine responded, her eyes still averted. "Things are just hectic at work right now." I wasn't convinced. "Are they? Or is there something else you're not telling me?" I asked, my heart racing. Catherine's expression hardened, and for a moment I thought she might break. Instead, she crossed her arms defensively. "Benjamin, I told you, it's just work," she snapped, her voice becoming sharper. "Can we not do this right now?" "But you texted me saying you were busy with work," I pointed out, my frustration mounting. Catherine flushed bright red. "Did I? I meant work stuff," she stammered. "The meeting was for work?" I asked, suspicion lacing my voice. "Yes," she replied, but the hesitation in her tone made me wary. "Where was it?" I pressed, feeling the knot in my stomach tighten. "At a coffee shop," she said, her words coming out quickly. "Near the hospital?" I asked. She nodded. "Yeah," she said, but the uncertainty in her voice made me question everything. "Which coffee shop?" I asked. Catherine hesitated, her eyes darting nervously around the room. "I don't remember the name. Just some local place," she muttered, her gaze never meeting mine. My heart started to race as the unease inside me grew darker. "Catherine, please," I said, my voice softening. "Just tell me the truth. Where were you last night?" She stiffened. "I told you. I was at a meeting." "Why are you questioning me like this?" she snapped, her voice defensive. "Because nothing about this makes sense," I shot back, my voice rising. "Why didn't you tell me about the meeting earlier? Why lie about being at the hospital?" Catherine slammed her coffee mug down on the counter, her eyes flashing with anger. "I didn't lie," she yelled. "I was working. Just because you showed up uninvited doesn't mean I owe you a detailed account of my day." Her words stung like a slap. "Uninvited?" I repeated, my voice shaking. "Catherine, I'm your husband. I was trying to do something nice for you." Tears welled up in her eyes. "I know," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry. I'm just overwhelmed right now." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to trust her, but something inside me screamed that she was hiding something. "Is there something going on?" I asked gently. "Something you're not telling me?" Catherine wiped her eyes, her face a mask of guilt. "No, Benjamin. There's nothing going on. Can we please just drop this?" Her voice was soft, almost pleading. I nodded, the weight in my chest growing heavier. "Okay," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "But Catherine, you know you can talk to me about anything, right?" She gave me a small smile, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I know," she murmured. "I'm going to get ready for work." As Catherine walked out of the kitchen, I stayed seated, feeling more lost and heartbroken than I ever had. I loved her with everything I had, but it felt like she was slipping away from me, and I had no idea how to stop it. That evening, as we sat on opposite sides of the couch pretending to watch TV, I realized something. We were broken, and I had no clue how to fix it. A few days later, I woke up early on a Saturday morning. Catherine was still asleep, her phone plugged into the charger on the nightstand. I don't know what made me do it, but I reached for her phone. My heart pounded as I typed in her birthday, the password she had always used. The phone unlocked with a soft click. My hands trembled as I opened her messages. At first, everything seemed normal. But then I saw a conversation with someone named Ronald from work. My breath caught in my throat as I opened it. The messages were numerous, and the photos. They shattered everything I thought I knew. The kind of pictures a wife should never share with another man. A wave of nausea hit me like a tidal wave, and my vision blurred. I staggered toward the bathroom, locking the door behind me with trembling hands. I collapsed onto the edge of the bathtub, still holding Catherine's phone, my eyes fixed on the undeniable proof of her betrayal. How could she do this to me? How long had this been going on? I scrolled through the never-ending messages, each one a fresh wound, each one digging deeper into my chest. Then I heard Catherine's voice from the other side of the house. "Benjamin, have you seen my phone?" I couldn't speak. My throat tightened as if it were closing up. Her footsteps were growing louder, drawing closer to the bathroom. "Benjamin, are you in there? I can't find my phone." I stayed quiet. My mind raced in panic. I had to preserve this evidence, to make sure she couldn't just erase everything and lie her way out of this. My hands trembled as I forwarded every message and photo to my email, hoping I could secure them before it was too late. The knocking at the door became more frantic. "Benjamin, are you okay? Why's the door locked?" Catherine's voice was full of concern. I barely found the strength to whisper, "I'm fine. I just need a minute," I managed to say. "I really need my phone, Benjamin. I'm meeting some co-workers for brunch." "Co-workers? You mean Ronald, don't you?" The thought churned in my gut. The door rattled again, and Catherine's voice was more insistent. "Have you seen it? It's not on my nightstand." I glanced at the phone in my hand. "No," I lied. "I haven't seen it." "Are you sure? Can you come out and help me look?" she pressed. "Just a minute," I said, my voice faltering. I could tell she detected something in my tone because her voice softened. "Benjamin, what's going on? Open the door." I didn't answer. I was too focused on protecting every scrap of evidence. Then I heard her begin pounding on the door, her panic escalating. "Benjamin, open the door! What are you doing in there?" I rushed to send the last email just as her knocks became more desperate. "Benjamin, I know you have my phone. Open this door!" Her voice was full of fear now. I stood, my legs shaky, and looked into the bathroom mirror. The man staring back was a stranger, pale, shaken, barely holding it together. "I'm coming out," I said, my voice sounding foreign to me. I took a deep breath and reached for the door handle. In mere seconds, I would face Catherine. I would have to confront the ugly truth that would destroy everything we had. Our lives would never be the same. I turned the handle, stepped into the hallway, and paused. I couldn't face her. Not yet. I was too hurt, too angry. So I just stood there, watching her. A week had passed since I found those messages, and once again, Catherine claimed she'd be working late. This time I wasn't going to sit around and wait. I decided to follow her. The choice felt wrong, like I was living through some twisted drama. I'd had a few drinks to calm my nerves, probably not the smartest idea, but I had to know the truth. I watched as Catherine's car turned into the parking lot of the Pinewood Hotel. My hands gripped the wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. This was real. She was actually doing this. Minutes crawled by, and I staggered out of my car, the alcohol blurring everything. I walked into the hotel lobby, scanning for her. There she was, standing at the front desk, chatting with the clerk. "Catherine," I called, my voice more forceful than I meant. She whipped around, her face drained of color. "Benjamin, what are you doing here?" I took a few unsteady steps toward her, my body uncooperative. "I could ask you the same thing. Another work meeting with Ronald?" The clerk behind the desk shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, is everything all right?" he asked. "No," I said, my voice cracking with emotion. "Everything is far from all right. My wife is cheating on me." Catherine's eyes widened, and she rushed to grab my arm, pulling me away from the desk. "Benjamin, you're drunk. Let's go outside and talk." I yanked my arm free. "I don't want to go anywhere with you." "I saw the messages, Catherine. I saw the pictures. How could you do this to me?" I asked, my voice trembling with hurt. Her face collapsed, and she pleaded, "Benjamin, please. It's not what you think. Let me explain." I let out a bitter laugh, though it sounded more like a sob. "Explain? What are you going to explain? How you've been lying to me? How you've been sneaking around behind my back?" The clerk stepped in, his voice stern. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to calm down or leave." I ignored him, keeping my eyes locked on Catherine. "Was I not enough for you? Did you get tired of our life? Is that why you've been doing this?" Tears stained Catherine's face as her voice shook with desperation. "Benjamin, please, you have to understand. This is all a terrible mistake. I never meant for it to happen. I'm so sorry." I repeated her words in disbelief, the sting of anger taking over. "A mistake? You don't call this a mistake. A mistake is forgetting your keys. What you did, this was a choice, Catherine. You chose to betray me." She reached out to me again, eyes pleading, but I stepped back, feeling the weight of the truth pressing down on me. "Please, we can fix this," she urged, her voice cracking. "Fix this?" I snapped, my voice harsh and broken. "There's no fixing this, Catherine. You've torn everything apart." Without another word, I turned away, each step toward the door feeling heavier than the last. I heard her voice calling my name, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't bear to meet her eyes. Somehow, I managed to make it to my car. Too drunk to drive, I called the one person I could count on, my friend Alexander. "Can you come get me?" I asked when he picked up. "I'm at the Pinewood Hotel. Catherine's been cheating on me." Alexander didn't ask any questions. "I'll be there in 10. Don't move." As I sat in my car waiting for Alexander, I saw Catherine exit the hotel. She glanced around, no doubt searching for me. I sank lower into my seat, hoping she wouldn't see me. When Alexander arrived, I climbed into his car without a word. We drove away in silence, and as I glanced back in the rearview mirror, I saw Catherine standing alone in the parking lot. It was the last time I'd see her for a long time. The days that followed were a blur. I stayed at Alexander's place, crashing on his couch, too lost to think clearly. The idea of facing Catherine again felt impossible. On Monday, I called in sick. Then I began taking steps I never thought I would take. First, I went to the bank, my hands trembling as I spoke to the teller. "I need to freeze our joint accounts," I told her, the words heavy in my mouth. "I also want to open a new account, just in my name." The teller nodded sympathetically as if this was all too familiar to her. "Of course, sir," I can help with that. Next, I changed every password. Email, social media, everything. It felt like I was shutting Catherine out for good, and in truth, that's exactly what I was doing. My phone buzzed constantly with calls and messages from her, but I couldn't bring myself to open any of them. Every time I saw her name flash on the screen, it felt like a wound opening deeper. By Tuesday, I did something I never imagined I would. I went to the doctor for an STD test. The nurse was kind, but the humiliation I felt was overwhelming. "The results will take a few days," she said softly. "We'll call you once they're in." I nodded, barely able to speak. By Wednesday, I was barely holding myself together. I hadn't slept in days. My phone was flooded with more than 50 missed calls and countless messages from Catherine. Alexander could see the strain in me. "You should talk to someone," he said over breakfast. "Not Catherine, but maybe a lawyer. Remember the guy from school? He works at a law firm. He might be able to help." I nodded, too exhausted to argue. I called the lawyer, and he agreed to meet us for lunch. Alexander, always the big, comforting presence, listened intently as I stumbled through my story, my voice cracking with every word. "I'm sorry you're going through this," Alexander said when I finished, "but freezing the accounts was a smart move. You're doing the right things." "What do I do now?" I asked, feeling completely lost. Alexander leaned forward. "Well, if you're sure about the divorce, we should get started. I know a great divorce lawyer. Want me to set up a meeting?" The word divorce hit me like a punch in the gut, but I nodded, too drained to consider any other option. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I think that's what I need to do." As we left the restaurant, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Catherine. Without a glance, I turned it off. "You'll have to talk to her eventually," Alexander said gently. "I know," I replied, my voice hollow. "But not yet. I can't face her right now." That night, lying on Alexander's couch and staring at the ceiling, I got a call from the doctor's office. My test results had come back negative. I felt a brief sense of relief, but it did little to ease the storm inside me. As sleep finally took me, I couldn't help but wonder how everything had fallen apart so quickly. Just weeks ago, I thought Catherine and I would be together forever. Now, I was preparing to end it all, to divorce the woman I once thought was my soulmate. A week after my talk with Alexander, he reached out to me. I was still at his place grappling with what came next. "Benjamin," he said, his tone serious, "Catherine's been in touch." I braced myself for what was coming. "What did she want?" I asked, trying to steady myself. Alexander sighed heavily, and I could practically hear him raking a hand through his hair. "She's begging for another chance. Says she wants to explain everything." I closed my eyes tightly, a surge of anger and grief flooding over me. "Did she give you any explanation?" Alexander spoke evenly, though I could hear the weight of the conversation. "She tried. Claims it was meaningless. Says she made a terrible mistake and wants to make amends." I couldn't help it. A bitter laugh slipped out. "A mistake?" "She cheated on you, Alexander," I said, my voice shaking. "That's not a mistake. It's a conscious choice." "I know, man," Alexander said quietly, his voice full of understanding. Look, I need to go back to your place and grab some things. Catherine said she'd let me in." "Do you think I should talk to her?" His uncertainty was evident. I hesitated, torn. Part of me wanted to hear her out, to understand her side, but I knew I couldn't face it. "Just grab my clothes and anything important," I said finally, "and don't talk to her unless absolutely necessary." "Understood," Alexander replied, and the call ended. An hour later, my phone buzzed again. "I've got everything," Alexander said, his voice carrying a strange undertone I couldn't quite place. "But Benjamin..." Catherine was there. She was really upset. I felt myself stiffen. "What do you mean?" "She was crying," Alexander continued. She said she regrets everything, wants to talk, explain herself. I think she's really struggling with the mess she made. She was begging me to help fix things with you. She said she'd do anything to make it right. My chest tightened. What did you tell her? I told her you needed time and space, Alexander responded gently but firmly. I told her if she truly wants to fix things, she has to respect that. I nodded, though he couldn't see it. Thanks, Alexander. I really appreciate that. There was a long pause before Alexander spoke again, his voice unsure. There's one more thing. She wrote you a letter. She asked me to give it to you. My heart skipped a beat at the mention of Catherine's letter. Do you have it with my stuff? Yeah, Alexander replied cautiously. I swallowed hard, torn. Part of me wanted to read it, to hear her words, but another part feared it would only bring more pain. Don't give it to me yet, I said quietly. I'm not ready. All right, Alexander said softly. I'll keep it safe. Whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready, it'll be here. After the call ended, I sat on Alexander's couch, my head buried in my hands. Catherine wanted to reconcile. She said it was all a mistake, that the affairs meant nothing. But how could I ever trust her again? How could I look at her without remembering the evidence, the messages, the photos? Alexander entered the room, concern etched on his face. You doing okay, man? I looked up, feeling like I was suffocating. Catherine wants to reconcile, I said, my voice hollow. She told you those affairs didn't mean anything. Alexander sat down beside me, his presence a quiet comfort. What do you want to do? I shook my head. I don't know. I still love her, Alexander. Or, I loved who I thought she was. But how can I ever trust her again? The question hung heavily in the air, laden with everything that had happened. Alexander placed a hand on my shoulder. You don't have to make any decisions right now. Take your time, think it through. Figure out what you really want. As I nodded, I realized he was right. I needed time. Time to think and figure out if there was anything left to save in my marriage. 2 weeks later, after Alexander had delivered my things, I finally felt ready to start the divorce process. I met with Samantha, a lawyer Alexander had recommended. She was professional, compassionate, but resolute, and her office had an air of order that I desperately needed in my chaotic life. Are you absolutely sure you want to move forward with this? Samantha asked, her voice calm as we sat across from each other at her desk, surrounded by rows of neatly arranged law books. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. Yes, I'm sure. I can't go back. Not to what we had. Samantha nodded and began outlining the process, the division of assets, the legal terms. My mind wandered as she spoke. How did it come to this? Only months ago, Catherine and I had been talking about starting a family. Now I was sitting across from a lawyer preparing to end my marriage. A week later, Samantha called me with unexpected news. Benjamin, she said, her voice tense, we've hit a roadblock. Catherine's refusing to sign the divorce papers. My stomach dropped. What? Why? She says she wants to try and reconcile, Samantha explained. She's asking for marriage counseling before any legal proceedings can happen. Frustration and heartache surged within me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What exactly is it that she's accusing me of? I repeated the question, barely able to hear my own words, my voice quivering with uncertainty. Samantha let out a heavy sigh, her tone laced with concern. She claims that your emotional neglect is the reason behind everything she did. She believes you distanced yourself and made her feel unimportant. It was as if the breath had been knocked out of me. All those late nights spent at the office, the times I dismissed her feelings, thinking I was doing what was best for us, it all came crashing down on me. I hadn't realized how deeply my absence, both physically and emotionally, had wounded her. Is she serious about this? I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. I never wanted her to feel like that, I murmured, my mind spinning in disbelief. I thought everything was fine. I know you didn't, Benjamin, but she's saying these things now, and they could have a big impact on the divorce. We need to confront this, Samantha replied. You need to collect your thoughts and prepare for mediation or counseling. It's important. I slumped back into the couch, a wave of helplessness washing over me. What if she's right? What if I really did push her away? I asked, doubt creeping into my voice. Samantha's tone softened. You have to face it, Benjamin. You can't change the past, but you can take responsibility for it. This could also be an opportunity for you to reflect on your own feelings, she added gently. I nodded slowly, absorbing her advice. I needed to confront my mistakes, but I also had to stay resolute. Thanks, Samantha. I'll think it over. After hanging up, I sat in silence, staring blankly at the wall. Catherine's accusations twisted in my mind, colliding with the memories of the life we once shared. I called Alexander again. Hey, he answered, his voice laced with concern. What's going on? Catherine's accusing me of emotional neglect. She says I pushed her away, I said, my voice cracking. I don't even know what to think anymore. Man, relationships are complicated, Alexander replied. It's not all your fault, but if there's any truth to what she's saying, maybe you should talk to her, find out what she's really feeling. I took a deep breath, feeling a knot tighten in my chest. Yeah, I guess you're right, but after everything, it's hard to face her. Just remember, Alexander said, his voice steady, you deserve the truth, whatever that truth is. As I ended the call, a mix of fear and determination surged through me. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew I had to face this head on. I couldn't let Catherine's accusations define me or control my actions any longer. I had loved her, and I'd done everything I could to make her happy. I know, Benjamin, Samantha had said, her voice calm and reassuring. These are just tactics. She's trying to stall or gain leverage. We'll get through it. But Catherine wasn't finished. A few days later, Samantha called again. Now Catherine's asking for alimony, she said, her tone resigned. She claims the divorce is causing her emotional distress and that she needs financial support, Samantha added. A bitter laugh escaped me. Emotional distress? What about mine? She's the one who cheated. I know it's tough, Benjamin, Samantha said sympathetically, but stay calm. We'll fight this. As the weeks passed, I felt like I was on an emotional roller coaster. One moment, I was furious at Catherine for her manipulative moves, and the next, I found myself sifting through old photos, questioning where everything had gone wrong. Alexander did his best to keep me distracted, trips to the gym, movie nights, anything to help me forget the turmoil. But in the quiet moments, when I was alone with my thoughts, the pain would rush back. One evening, as we sat down to dinner, Alexander looked at me seriously. Benjamin, I know this is rough, but you need to start thinking about moving forward. I pushed my food around on my plate, feeling lost. How am I supposed to move on when Catherine won't even sign the papers? Alexander leaned in, his tone thoughtful. I'm not talking about rushing into another relationship. I mean, focusing on yourself. What do you want from life? What makes you happy? His words cut through me. I had been so consumed by the pain of losing Catherine that I hadn't stopped to consider what I needed. I don't know, I admitted, a deep sense of uncertainty enveloping me. It's been so long since I thought about what I really want. Well, now's the perfect time to start, Alexander said, his voice encouraging. Why don't you sign up for that photography class you always talked about? The idea felt unfamiliar yet exciting, a glimmer of something new amidst the darkness. The next day, I signed up for a beginner's photography class at the local community college. As I learned about apertures and shutter speeds, I felt a flicker of joy. It wasn't much, but it was something. I also began seeing Dr. Marco, a therapist. At first, I hesitated to open up, but over time, I began looking forward to our sessions. "Benjamin," Dr. Marco said one day, "I want you to imagine something for me. What would your ideal life look like if you could build it from scratch?" I sat quietly, trying to envision it. "I'm not sure," I finally said. "I guess I'd want to be happy, have a job I love, maybe travel more." "Those are great goals," she replied, nodding. "Now how can you start working towards them?" And little by little, I began rebuilding my life. I threw myself into photography, even taking on small freelance jobs. It wasn't easy, but it was a start. I had always dreamed of taking a solo trip to Europe, something that had been on my mind for years, but for one reason or another, I'd always postponed it. Just when it seemed like I was starting to move forward, Catherine found a way to throw another wrench in my plans. Samantha called, her voice strained and tense. "Catherine's lawyer is claiming that your decision to pursue photography and travel is a way to drain marital assets," she explained. "They're planning to use it against you in the settlement." A surge of frustration hit me. "That's ridiculous. I'm just trying to live my life," I shot back. Samantha let out a long breath. "I know, Benjamin. We're not going down without a fight, but I want to prepare you. It could get even messier before it's over." That night, lying in the guest room at Alexander's place, my thoughts were a chaotic mix of anger towards Catherine, mourning what we had, and a flicker of optimism. Despite everything, a part of me was starting to picture a future where Catherine wasn't part of the equation. I reached for my camera, which had become a constant companion, and began fiddling with the settings, gazing through the viewfinder. As I focused the lens, a realization washed over me. Life, like photography, is all about perspective. My current view was hazy, uncertain, but with time and patience I could shift the focus and perhaps capture something beautiful again. The next morning, I dialed Samantha's number. "I'm ready to move forward with the divorce," I said, my voice stronger than it had been in a long while. "Whatever Catherine throws our way, I'm prepared to face it. It's time for me to move on." Samantha's response was warm and full of encouragement. "That's great, Benjamin. We'll make it happen. It may take a while, but we'll get through it." After hanging up, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I knew the road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in what felt like ages, I was ready to face it. One step at a time, one day at a time, I was beginning to rebuild. And maybe, just maybe, I'd look back on this painful chapter and see it as the beginning of something new and beautiful. 6 months had passed since I discovered Catherine's affair. The divorce was finalized, and now I found myself sitting in my new apartment, flipping through the latest batch of photographs I'd taken. As I looked at them, memories of everything that had transpired flooded my mind. It still felt surreal. The Catherine I thought I knew felt like a stranger now, a far cry from the woman she had become. Her actions throughout the divorce had shocked me at every turn. The lies, the constant deflection of blame, the manipulation. It was like watching someone else wear my wife's face. "You okay, man?" Alexander's voice pulled me out of my thoughts. He was helping me unpack the last of my things. I nodded, offering a small smile. "Yeah, just processing everything." Alexander settled down next to me. "It's been a crazy ride," he said. "That's putting it lightly," I responded with a dry chuckle. When all of this started, I thought I was the one at fault. I kept wondering what I could have done differently. "And now?" Alexander prompted. I took a deep breath. "Now I see that Catherine's choices were hers alone. Her narcissism, her refusal to take responsibility, that's on her. It never had anything to do with me." Alexander nodded, clearly approving. "Exactly. You can't control other people's actions, only your own." His words reminded me of something Dr. Marco had told me in therapy. Self-respect is key, I repeated, echoing my therapist's wisdom. I learned that the hard way. For a while, I thought about forgiving Catherine, trying to make things work. But I realized doing that would mean sacrificing my own dignity. Alexander gave me a supportive pat on the shoulder. "I'm proud of you for sticking to your guns." I smiled, appreciating his support. "Thanks. You know, Catherine kept trying to make amends until the very end. She sent messages through you, wrote letters. For a while, I considered it. But then I remembered the lies and the manipulation. I realized I deserve better. As I spoke those words, I felt their truth sink in deeper. I truly did deserve better, and I still do." "So, what's next for Benjamin, the newly single photographer?" Alexander asked, teasing a bit. I chuckled, feeling lighter than I had in months. "Well, that European trip is finally happening, and I'm thinking about converting the spare room into a dark room for my photography." "Sounds amazing," Alexander said. "I don't think I've seen you this excited about something in a long time." His words made me pause. He was right. Despite everything I'd gone through, or maybe because of it, I was starting to feel hopeful, even excited. "I guess I'm finally learning to look forward instead of back," I said. As we finished unpacking, my thoughts turned to the future. I knew it wouldn't always be smooth sailing. There would be days when the pain from what happened with Catherine would resurface, and there would be moments when I'd second-guess everything. But I also knew I was stronger now. I had learned to value myself and to stand firm in my beliefs. I had come to understand that sometimes it's okay to put myself first. Most importantly, I had learned that life moves on. It might not look like what I had imagined, but that didn't mean it couldn't be beautiful in its own way. As the sun dipped below the horizon outside my new apartment, I picked up my camera. Through the lens, I saw the world anew, full of possibilities, ready to be captured. And for the first time in a long time, I was eager to see what would unfold. Our story comes to an end here. Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for taking the time to watch. If you enjoyed this story, please check out other videos on this channel. See you soon, my dear friend. Our story comes to an end here. Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for taking the time to watch. If you enjoyed this story, please check out other videos on this channel. See you soon, my dear friend.